can do it.
Oh, lost
Look
it.
at that. I planned that the whole time.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Michael with RC Crawling. We're going back to the C10. I'm not sure which order these are going to release, so we may have been on the C10. Today we're going to modify our steering to get a better steering angle, and we're going to also add some brass knuckles. Not the fighting kind, the crawling kind. That'll help increase our forward weight bias, help keep that front end planted when we're climbing. And then the steering angle, of course, will help us maneuver tighter turns out on the rocks. But we're going to go ahead and dive into it today, and I'll show you how we're going to do this. This is what we're working with today. We've got our brass knuckles left and right. These are from Ramp Crab. Not used these kind before, but good company. And some upgraded drive shafts for the front. Instead of the dog bone, these are kind of universal joints. They're going to allow us to turn at a sharper angle before they bind up. And they're a little thicker axle, so they'll be a little bit sturdier. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the body off the C10. I think we've all seen pulling off the steering linkages, and then it's just 2 more screws for the knuckles, one here and one on top. So I'm going to go ahead and get that all pulled apart, and we will start working on throwing on these upgrades. We are ready to take our plastic knuckles off now, and I'm just going to show you how to do one of them because they're exactly the same. One screw on top and one screw on bottom. So that's our plastic knuckle. These axle shafts come in 2 parts. They're dog bone style. So this is the outer shaft. And then the inner shaft is right in here. We'll just pop that out. Also has a bearing on the end. So dog bone style axle. Doesn't have as good of a steering angle compared to our new ones. And these new ones are OGRC brand. I'll drop a link in the description as always. And you can see, if it'll focus, how this allows for a bigger angle on the axle shaft before it starts binding. Of course, if you go this way, it's going to bind. And you can see how much thicker it is. So that's going to be a good thing. I'm going to go ahead and pull off the other ones, other side, and then we will jump back in with the steering mod. Everything's fully disassembled now. Oops. Except for that other part of the drive shaft, axle shaft. You know what I mean. Just so I don't forget, I'm going to take this bearing out too. It's going to go back in, but I'm going to leave it. So what we're going to do now to increase our steering angle, we're going to take our cheap end snips, flush cuts, whatever they're called, and we're going to cut the axle housing right here where it's kind of rounded, kind of quarter moon shaped, we're just going to cut about 1 millimeter of plastic off. Just like you're cutting your fingernails. You don't want to do too much. And that's all we're taking off. So that's going to allow our knuckle to move further. And we're going to do the same on the back side. Just a fingernail sliver. And same on this side. You could use a Dremel for this. Dremels take off a lot of material in a hurry, so be careful if you decide to go with the Dremel. This plastic is pretty soft. These are working great. And again, these were $4 at Walmart. So that's our steering mod done. I'm going to clean it up with a little bit of sandpaper and a file, and then we will put our new axle shafts in and our brass knuckles, and we will be good to go. Just checking in the middle of this process. So I cleaned up the cuts a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. Our axle shafts just slide in here. Make sure you've got your bearing on the inside of the axle housing. And then that'll slot in there, and when it doesn't turn, you know it's seated correctly. And these knuckles are a little bit different than our stock knuckles. So our stock knuckles had a bearing on the back and the outside. These just have bearings on the outside. Hey everyone, quick update. I made a mistake. I said earlier that you don't need a bearing on this side. I was very wrong. You do need a bearing on this side. It fits in there, like so. And without that bearing, your axle shafts are going to slide out of your diff gears, and you will have sometimes two-wheel drive, sometimes three-wheel drive, and sometimes crunching. So put your bearings back in where they should be, and you'll be good to go. So you're just going to press one of your bearings into that slot on your steering knuckle, and then it just sits around the axle shaft, and you screw it back together like so. So I'm going to go ahead and reassemble everything. I have not yet dremeled my steering link, and you can kind of see it's been rubbing a little bit on our diff cover, and now that we're increasing the steering angle, we are definitely going to need to modify this to take full advantage of our new increased steering angle. So I'm going to go ahead and work on this, get everything buttoned back up, and we will repeat our turning radius test and see how tight of a turn we can get now. I'm finishing up the last screw, but wanted to talk about the hardware that is included with these knuckles. We've got these tiny little bushings along with some screws, and if you're not sure what these bushings are for, I'm going to show you. So we put the bushing around the screw, and that's going to go into the top of our knuckle. You can see that hole's pretty big, so these bushings are just going to make sure it's nice and snug without any play, and helps reduce friction during steering, helps keep the screw from backing itself out. So nice and easy, just like that. We've got our knuckles on here. We've increased our turning radius. Hopefully, we'll find out once we get everything hooked back up. I'm going to go ahead and Dremel on my steering link, get it thrown together and we'll do our steering test. I've been working on dremeling our steering link, and I've taken some off, and you see I've done a beautiful job with it, but that's all right. It's going to get rock rash anyways. So took some off. It was taking too long. Brass is way softer. So I just took the top of this. There was a little bit of a point up here that our steering link was contacting. So I just took that off. Took about 2 seconds versus 20 minutes I spent on this. So just wanted to show that to everybody. Easy way to tell when you're getting deep enough. If you're hitting sparks, you're hitting steel. Brass doesn't spark. So if you're dremeling on the brass diff cover and you're getting sparks like I did, you can see I had contacted the screw head. I knew it was time to quit. So I'm going to go ahead and button this back up all the way, and we will move on to our steering test finally. We are lined up for our steering radius test. Turning radius, I suppose. So, lined up on the tape, just like we did before. We're going to do full lock, and we're going to slow crawl. And that's where we hit the tape, and all the way out here is where we were with just underdrive. So I'm going to go ahead and make a mark here. So steering mod, we'll call this. Steering mod slow. So we've gained over a truck length's decreased turning radius. Now we'll do it fast, full lock, and just a tiny bit tighter. We'll do fast steering mod. So, if you remember, we've always started here, steering mod and underdrive, and then ran out of room for stock. So definitely a good mod, really easy, one of the cheaper ones to do. If you want to do this one first, go for it. If you want to do it last, it doesn't really matter which order you do these mods. I just did them in the order that we watched them together in. So let's go hit the rocks and see how we do out there. We might as well go ahead and put this truck back on the setup table. Now that all of our mods are done, we'll test out our RTI. We're about at a 16, which is pretty good. That's really all you need. Being able to float a wheel is much more useful than flex. Now we'll test the side hill. 30, 40, 45, lifting a little bit, 50, and say about 52 for the side hill. And now on the vertical, 30, 40, 45, 50, 55, sliding a little bit, 60, and about 62. There's our spider web friend again. There we go, struggling a little bit. Very damp this morning, all the rocks are wet, even though it didn't rain. Really able to take advantage of that steering angle now. Take some tight lines. See if we can make this sharp turn up onto the bridge. Oh yeah, not possible to take that line before. Really come around tight. Oops, struggling to find traction, and I'm not used to how sharp this turns now. I'm missing my lines. Definitely, I think we're going to trim that front bumper some more. You can hear the tires clicking against it. Get lined up, see if we can make this side hill transition onto this rock. We have not been able to so far, but I think our weight up front is really gonna whoop, whoop, whoop. Wet tires don't grip. This may not be ideal conditions. Oh, lost it. Yeah, it is wet this morning. Just look at that piece of clay pipe, drenched. But really maneuverable, really able to pick whatever line we want now that our steering angle has been increased so drastically. thanks for sticking around. That's all the mods we've got for our little C10. We put about $200 worth of parts on this thing, and it's one of my top performing trucks. So I hope this was useful. Hope it was fun. We are still going to continue with the C10. We're going to do a chassis swap next. This is a prototype chassis. It's going to be available very soon. PsychoDRC on Instagram. I will leave a link to his profile. Message him if you want to purchase one. It's got a 25-degree skid angle, works with stock skid. I am going to build the chassis, and get it tuned, and then we will do another episode and talk about the performance gains and how I set it up to get the performance that I want out of it. This new chassis may prompt me to continue making changes to the C10. Our ASC is hanging out. We may need different shocks. We may bend our own links. I'm not sure yet, so I'm going to work on that, and we will talk about it in the next episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share. Let me know what you think of these mods. I think if you follow these mods for your own truck, you're going to be very happy, and you're going to have a quite capable little Scx24. So I will see you again soon.